Live and in color from the NBC News radio broadcasting studios of KCAA, 1050 AM, 102.3 FM, and 106.5 FM, located in beautiful Southern California, and in parallel from the Turf's Up radio studio in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. Thanks for tuning in to the Water Zone Show this evening.
Well, good afternoon, good evening, and good morning, depending upon where you are in this glorious world. And the reason I do that, we have a caller that's going to come in on our second half. He's our featured guest, and he's calling in from Greece, and it will be 2:30 in the morning his time, so we're appreciating he's staying up late or getting up early. I don't know. Either one, we'll ask him. But I'm Rob Starr, and I'm with Miss Chris Austin. Mr. Davey, Chris Davey, is off today on some personal business. And anyway, just so you know where he is, he's doing well. And so, Miss Austin, how are you doing today?
Hey, I'm doing okay. Can't complain. It's a nice day up here in the North State. Just a simple 101 degrees. So.
Well, that's not bad. That's much cooler than what I'm experiencing out here in the Phoenix area. It's pretty warm, and you know, we look at temperature. It's 110. And it gets a little warmer as we get on to 4 or 5 o'clock in the afternoon, as I've always said, but we get a breeze because we're by the mountains, and that should be really nice. But, you know, I figure everybody has air conditioning in their car, air conditioning in their house, all the stores you go to got air conditioning. So the only time you're really out of that is if you're playing golf, which I think is silly at 115. Worse, I saw it 2 weeks ago at 117 people were playing golf. I thought they were crazy. And if you're in your pool, you're going to get cool. But it's just getting out of your car and walking to where you're going is the hot spot. So other than that...
So essentially moving from air-conditioned box to air-conditioned box.
Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly. You got it.
Got it. Yay! That sounds like fun.
Yeah. But, you know, it's a dry heat out here in the Phoenix area, and it's not so bad. I mean, I've been here 5 years.
That's what they tell you. That's what the people that live in really hot places tell you. It's not that bad.
Well, I get worried when they have, I don't know if you have a lot in California, but you see a lot of vendors on the sides of the road selling, with little trucks or wagons, and they're selling food or juice or whatever. And so you go to get a burrito or something like that, but you see them cooking on the pavement. You kind of worry. It's got to be a little hot out there to do that. Yeah. Physically putting the pan on the ground or putting it on the top of an engine. It's crazy. But anyway, so a lot going on in California with the famous things of reservoirs. Lots going on. So I know you're talking about some setbacks could be fatal for this. What is it, little over $2 billion to do a major reservoir in the Santa Clara County? Tell us a little about what's going on with that.
Well, yesterday the California Water Commission met, and they have some money to be spent. They had, the Water Storage Investment Program, as it's called, came into being after Prop 1, which was passed way back in, 2014, I think. So they had chosen 7 projects, and they had divvied up the money that those 7 projects would get if they were able to get completed. And now they've had 2 projects now drop out of the program. So those projects, the money that was allocated for them is kind of now returned to the program. And then we recently passed Proposition 4, which did include extra money, extra funding for the projects that are in this water storage investment program. So the commission had a chunk of money that they needed to spend and some very specific instructions on how to spend it. It could really only be allocated to the projects that have already been selected and are feasible,
right,
and are moving forward. So they did a couple of things. One thing they did is they raised the amount that the projects can get for what they call early funding, which itself is limited to 5% of their total award for the program. But they they had a cap on it of a certain dollar amount. Excuse me. And so they just removed the cap on the dollar amount, but did not raise it to 5%. So that stays. And then they took the rest of the money and they redistributed it out to the various programs, but they didn't give it to everybody that has pending projects, which is interesting to me. So like the Chino Basin, the Kern Fan project, those are groundwater projects in San Joaquin Valley in Southern California. They all received additional funding, as did Sites Reservoir, which is this new reservoir that they want to build up in the Sacramento Valley, not far from where I am here.
Mm-hmm.
And Sites has been a project that has been, talked about and contemplated for literally decades, but they have really worked very hard since they received the funding award, and of course prior to that, to work on getting this reservoir built. And they have really progressed a long way. They have enough participants in it. They actually have more than enough. The project is considered fully subscribed, and they have more than enough people willing to pay for it. They've accumulated pretty much all of their funding. There's still a little more funding that is needed, but they have really come along and got most of that in line. This adjustment now puts the amount they will receive from the state to about $1.1 million, where it was at $875,000 or $875 million. So they got a $200 million plus boost to that. Now, what's interesting is they did not give any money to the Pacheco Dam project. They cited that they just didn't think that the project is progressing, and it's been revised several times in the last few years, increasing the cost because they've run into some project problems, like where they originally wanted to put the dam, it would be right over an earthquake fault. So they had to move the dam location further up from that. So that, then means another redesign and more geotech studies, et cetera, et cetera. So, and they have very little money, very little funding for what looks to be like a $3 billion plus reservoir. And really the only one that they have in line to pay for that is themselves and their ratepayers. So it's not a very popular project in their area, and they say that this setback could be enough that project will not happen. And I think that this sort of illustrates the problem with these large projects. People say, well, that was past 10 years ago. How come you haven't built yet? And that's because there's so much that goes in to getting ready to build. And, a reservoir project is very unlikely to be what we would call shovel-ready because there's just too much to be done. If you got it to the point of being shovel-ready, then you would have already invested substantial resources to get to that point. And most places are not, can't finance all of that work to be done. So, that's why there were things built into this program. They had to complete feasibility studies and, continue to show progress. And also the other project that did not get any additional funding is the Willow Springs project, which is a groundwater project in Southern California, a groundwater banking project. And I think it's probably due to the lack of that project is progressing, but they still haven't got all of their ducks in the row yet. So I haven't dug into the full coverage of the meeting yet, but that's another one that did not get any. So,
you mentioned earlier, that they on one of these things where they found out they're on a earthquake fault. Shouldn't that have been all done ahead of time for the studies?
Well, in order to determine that, you have to go out and you have to drill cores down into the earth. I mean, we can say, well, we think there's something over there, but you never know. So when it's part of planning for the reservoir, they have to go out, they have to drill holes. And, cores that go deep down and examine these samples. Again, this goes back to, it takes a lot of work to get to that point, because to figure out where you need to drill the holes, you need to design the dam a little bit and figure out where the dam's going to be. It's not full-on engineered dam yet, but you need to determine a lot of stuff, and that work is very expensive, and it's hard to embark on unless you have some hope of completing the project. So, these are public agencies, and it's very difficult to find the funding to self-fund going out and conducting the studies needed, to do all these reservoirs on your own. That's right. Why you get, there's a lot of grants that come for planning and stuff along the way that you can apply for. But as a public agency, it's kind of hard to self-fund something as much as that. So.
Yeah. Well, I agree with what you've said in many past episodes that we've had, talking about, the Sites Reservoir, for example. Personally, I think it's a great idea. I think they desperately need it. I know the governor is into that. I know Wade Crowfoot, who's the Secretary of Natural Resources for California. He's behind it, and so are a lot of other people. I know every project that comes up, I don't care what it is, in government or for a state or a city or whatever, there's always people for it, and there's always people against it. And you gotta keep it as open and transparent as you can. And like you said, it takes time. All these studies take a long time to do and put together, and the funding. And I guess it's not tough. It's just like the desal plants in Carlsbad that took 17 years from the thought of doing it till when they turned the switch on. That's a long time. And of course prices changes because money isn't the same. I remember buying gas for 25 cents a gallon for my first car, and McDonald's for 16 cents. You can't do that anymore.
Yeah, and desalination projects are kind of, they're somewhat controversial, I think, and environmentalists tend not to like them for the impacts that they have or can have on the coastal environment. Yep. And, environmental justice folks and others point to the high cost of that water, and that speaks to the affordability of water for the people that would have to be paying for that. Yep. Now, the State Water Board, as part of the nuisance water supply strategy, the State Water Board is working to do a bit of streamlining on desalination projects to kind of improve the ability to move a little faster on these projects. So some of those things include they are producing a report that provides guidance for where you might want to put your desal plant. Specific locations, siting information, information on the type of intakes that you might have for your desalination plant, and some other things that the State Water Board is looking at to streamline the process, to make it easier in the future.
Yeah, and you got to look at all the extra things that go along with that. We've had many different companies on who do desal. There's a new one called Ocean Well, and it's and they had some really nice technology where you could do it they put these pods underneath down in the ocean floor, and with the ongoing pressure that's there helps pump the water out, and also they're also looking at ways what can they do with the brine. It's just like algae blooms. There's places we had on a couple of years ago a company that, and you can get a license to do this. You have to need a license anyway to have a what do you call it, a bloom, algae bloom farm, they call it, and then this company was making cosmetics and vitamins out of it. So that's pretty. But who knows? I mean, what wasn't 10 years ago or 50 years ago, it can be today. With all the technology we got, we can figure out how to do stuff. But and also the power, using the ocean's pressure to do the pumping. You don't need this electricity that you got to have and all this other stuff. It's just amazing to me.
Yeah, the Ocean Well project, they're starting their first water farm. I think they did a pilot project in a reservoir, and now they're looking to do that now off the California coast. So It would be the first one for Las Virgenes Municipal Water District and some other folks that are joining in. A very interesting concept, doing this deep sea desalination, and it's my understanding that the brine is not necessarily the issue, because I think they're not going to be taking it up and separating it on the surface, concentrating it and dumping it back in. They won't need to do that. And what's really, I thought, very interesting was on the press release, there was a comment from a gentleman named Mark Gold. He sits on the Metropolitan Board of Directors, but he represents Santa Monica, and he used to run Heal the Bay, the nonprofit Heal the Bay, and so he's a pretty serious environmentalist. Yep. And I don't think I've ever seen him really support desalination projects along the coast. That kind of doesn't. Environmentalists generally don't do that. But he is actually saying some positive things about the Ocean Well system, and wants to see how it performs. So I thought that's very interesting.
Oh, it is. I was talking to them. I was talking to some people from Ocean Well the other day, and they're telling me there's some things that you can mine. That's the term they use, harvest certain rare elements that are mixed in with the brine. And so there's a way of separating that. And they're working on projects with some university to take that further. But it's such cutting edge stuff, and with AI coming down the road, it's here but not here. I think we're going to see a big boom in technology in the next 10 to 20 years. So I'm excited. I'm excited about that. One last thing while you're here, I know that the state water contractors are pushing for an easier Delta Tunnel passage path. Can you maybe tell us a little bit what's going on with that?
Yeah, back when they were doing the budget, way back in May, June, Governor Newsom was pushing some legislation that would solve some problems that they have with the Delta Conveyance Project. Some problems that really can only be solved by a legislative fix. They have to do with the water rights for the state water project. It also has something to do with I'm sorry, it lost me. But yes, to streamline the environmental review process and sort of remove some of the avenues to challenge the process. And there are some issues that are going on with the project that if one of them has to do with DWR's authority to finance bonds, which has been challenged. And if that were to work its way through the court system, it would take about 5 years to get it resolved. And, the feeling is at this point is that, we need to build this Delta Tunnel now. I do not think that we're going to be able to go another 5 years waiting to build this tunnel. I think that the agencies are, either we're going to build it now or the project will just fall apart, I think, because I don't think the next governor is going to want to take this issue on. It's been actually unusual in the sense that we've had now 3 governors that have been working on essentially the same project as it has evolved over, from Schwarzenegger to Governor Jerry Brown, now to Newsom. So it's highly unlikely that the next governor is going to want to take this one on. So either we get this thing done now, or I don't think it will happen. I think that's kind of what's going. Either it happens or it doesn't, and that decision's going to be made sooner rather than later.
Yeah, I agree. Hey, one last thing. For people who go to your website, you have a section there where you say, find your next great read at the water shelf. And I know you've told Chris and I about that, but maybe you can spend just a minute or two telling the listeners what they can get out of that.
Oh, the water shelf. I have someone who Justin Scott Coe is his name, and he reviews water books and does podcasts and stuff. So if you're looking to read some great water books and learn more about some of the things we talk about on here, you can check out that page. And, there's a top 20 list of, the top books and book reviews and podcasts and new book notices. So if you're interested in learning more, then I suggest you visit the water shelf.
Yeah, and Justin, aside being a personal friend to both of us, he's a great guy. He's been in the water business a long, long time, and he does a good job at that. I just wanted to give you and him a shout out about that because we want to promote that. So we do thank you very much. Anyway, Chris, we're going to head off to our NBC News Hour, and we have hopefully our caller is called in. It looks like on my chart here, all the way from Greece at 2:30 in the morning. I can't believe he's doing that, but I'm glad he's doing that. So, Chris, you go have a great weekend. Stay cool, and for our listeners, if you'd like to find out more about Maven's Notebook, go to www.mavensnotebook.com, become a subscriber, and if you'd like to do as the Water Zone does, you can become a sponsor of that. And again, I commend this lady, award-winning lady, I have to say, and who does so much for the water industry and just knows it all. She's a go-to person, and I call her a WOW woman, and that stands for Woman of Water, and she's awesome. So thanks, Chris, and we'll talk to you next week.
All right. Good evening, everyone.
Good evening. All right, we're going to take a little break and have to go to NBC and then come back to some small commercials, and then we'll have our featured guest. That's going to be an interesting conversation, so stick around. We'll be right back.
KCAA Loma Linda. The Legacy KCAA 1050 AM and Express 106.5 FM.
Water is one of the biggest expenses for communities, HOAs, universities, golf courses, and resorts. So keeping those costs under control, especially when rates are increasing while water supplies are being reduced, are often essential to a customer's survival. Managing water requires multiple skills, which is why it's been complicated and difficult until now. AquaTrack brings multiple skills and technologies together to help large system users conserve outdoor water and improve the health of their landscapes. AquaTrack's professionals are certified landscape water managers and certified landscape irrigation auditors. The company offers audit services, upgrade advice, technical expertise, and water use monitoring. We already manage irrigation water for the largest homeowner associations in Arizona, and we're prepared to bring our knowledge and experience to help others, including landscapers and designers. Give us a call and hear how AquaTrack saved one HOA some 430 million gallons of water and $200,000 in annual water expenses. Aquatrack is Arizona-based, and you can reach us at 623-594-8689. That's 623-594-8689.
One of the most time-saving tools I found for my customers is our app and our e-commerce feature. So customers actually have the ability to view all of their quotes in one place. If you contact your SiteOne seller, you'll be able to log into your account and see all your quotes in one place. And instead of jumping on the phone or waiting for your seller to call you back, you can approve it right from the website, and it will send a message to your sales rep to get it on order and reserve the material. Customers can learn more about these tools at their SiteOne branch, from their local seller, from their local CX specialist, and from SiteOne.com, or by downloading the SiteOne app.
All right, welcome back to the second half of the WaterZone Show. I'm Rob Starr, and we thank you for tuning in to us each week. We appreciate that very much. We have a special guest calling in, and he's calling from Europe, and we do appreciate him taking the time or getting up early or going to bed late. We don't know that. We'll find out in a second, but his name is Quentin Driesman, and he's with a company called Science, spelled SCIENSNS. And we're going to welcome him to the WaterZone Show and find out a little bit more about what they do. So welcome, Quentin.
Thank you very much, Rob. How are you?
I'm doing good. So are you waking up or getting ready to go to bed?
Getting ready to go to bed. I just got here, and so I'm still pretty jet lagged. So I'm still on the East Coast time zone, so it's all good over there.
Okay. Well, we sincerely appreciate you calling in. So maybe you can tell us, I know you're a partner in this company, and they do private equity and do real asset management and such, but tell us a little about how you describe yourselves as a multi-dimensional investment universe and how you play in that field.
Sure, fantastic. So I'm an analyst here at Science, but I can explain a little bit about why we kind of expanded into the water sector, and maybe a little bit about why I chose to get involved in water in the first place.
Okay.
So we've been a real asset manager since the mid-90s. We've been investing in a variety of assets, and around 2008 we focused entirely on real assets. From then we were doing some gas funds, we had some colored diamonds funds, aviation, shipping, and around 2016, 2018, we decided to switch entirely and focus ourselves on investing in water. And the main thesis, the main idea, was from our CEO, who looked at the fragmentation and the crumbling U.S. infrastructure around water and realized there was a big opportunity to be had there. So we looked at it, and we thought that there was going to be. So we looked at it. We spent about 2 years researching the sector and expanding our knowledge base, and we've been committed to it ever since.
Yeah.
I got interested in water in the first place because I thought that, well, I spent some time investing and working in the climate tech venture capital space, which at the time was very exciting. I just gone through, or it was going through this kind of second wave of excitement. But when I dug a bit deeper and I looked at the analysis of all the different companies working in the space, there didn't seem to be a kind of a fundamental driver there. By that I mean, what I think you have to look at when you're looking at a good business or when you're looking at a good idea or something that's going to work in the U.S. and kind of internationally as well is fundamentally what are the economics of this particular product or of this particular company. Aside from the goodness, aside from the impact that it's having, which of course is very, very important to us here at Science and to myself, the very, very core thing has to be, how does this product or how does this field or market work on like an economic basis? When somebody is choosing between two choices that they have are they choosing something out of consumer sentiment, or are they choosing something instead because it's the economic decision to make? So for us, water seemed to be something that was this fundamental asset alongside energy and food. But if you look at energy and food, it seems to be something which is, you have to have quite a high level of education to innovate in the particular space. By that I mean, you're looking at building, let's say, water or drought-resistant crops. You're looking at understanding how can I get a kilowatt of battery into a smaller space year over year over year. But fundamentally, since the dawn of civilization, water has remained the same size, the same efficiency that it always has been. And for us, that seemed, or for myself even, it seemed like a really interesting opportunity, because also if you look at public sentiment, public ideas around water compared to energy and agriculture, it's spoken about in an entirely different context and without anywhere near the same level of excitement. But for me, it's like, well, in the immediate term of what is most important, aside from energy and food, water is really the fundamental asset in that sense.
Well, for our listeners and people who design new things and innovators, how do they? Oh, actually, it's a two-part question. So, how did you all come together to form Science? And was it? I'm not trying to get personal. I mean, did you all have a bunch of money to put it together and go do this, or did you go out and find investors to invest in your startup to do? And the reason I ask that, because people who are inventors usually come from another company, or they come out of the educational, being a professor and work on research things, and then they go out and try to find somebody to get some funding. And how does that put it all in perspective? I mean, you clearly described how you guys went into the water segment, and I think that's a great place to be. But how do you find the talent, or how do you find the components that you're looking for that you think that there's a value to that? Is it a one person who has an idea because he doesn't own a company, but he's a smart guy and he designed something or created something that will work really well? Or is it a company that launched itself a couple of years and they're going through the investment money or their personal money that they had, now they're looking to bump it up, but they have something that's good? How do you? I'm sure you have a checklist as being an analyst. And I've not worked for companies, but I was asked to go look at companies that maybe we wanted to buy or things of that sort. And I had sort of a checklist I had to put together. What's the key factors that makes your entity interested in what they have?
Well, for us, I mean, it has to be something which has, let's say, an independent product, or something that's kind of remotely, that has a moat around it. By that I mean, we aren't particularly going to be interested in looking at companies which are very highly commoditized, or that are kind of doing something which is like in the same context. We don't have the expertise on the innovation front, on the side of looking at companies on the earlier stage, pushing the boundaries of metering technology or membrane technology to really be able to facilitate their growth at the very start of the companies. Like in the company's infancy, there are companies out there which specialize in just that. But for us, we are kind of looking at saying, okay, well, how can we understand this water landscape better? And let's say we look at one of our platforms, IWS. We look at it and we say, well, we are coming at this wastewater treatment landscape with fresh eyes. When we first began the kind of IWS platform, that's how we were looking at it, with really, really fresh eyes, and saying, well, this is insane, because it seems like it's very much fragmented in these kind of mid and smaller sized utilities and these smaller sized municipalities across the US. And there was not this one player doing turnkey solutions at the smaller kind of fluxes, at the smaller gallon per day capacities. Right. And so for us, it seemed like a very interesting opportunity to say, okay, well, what would happen if we got a group of founders, people who had began their own companies or had been past companies down from generation to generation together who are specialty people focusing on, let's say, MBR tech or aeration tech or the likes thereof. How can we bring them all together, give them or understand how we can create this kind of holistic union of a platform that can really provide a turnkey solution for our customers? That's something that we were kind of looking at in the early days, let's say. So to answer your question, in brief, we're not looking necessarily at the people who are pushing the boundaries of each type of technology every single day and are just starting out. Looking at companies which are a bit more mature, a bit more skin, like a bit more history in the game, and a little bit more size. That makes sense.
Oh, absolutely. One of the things, like I said, I had a checklist that I used to use to do evaluations. And one of the important things I found was talking to the main people and going through. You have something called the Science AQ test sheet.
Yes.
And I found that really excellent, because if I was going to go in and look to invest some funds into a company, I want to know that the people who are working with that group really understands the market they're trying to get into or to do something with. Because if you don't have a good clue on knowing that industry, it's just a waste of time to do that. You have what's called the Science Water Opportunity Fund investment team, and there's a bunch of projects that I know you're working on. Maybe you can talk a little about it. I think there's I'm switching my notes here around because I made good notes to do it. But you have the thing with the MIT Water and Columbia Water Center. Maybe you can talk a little about what those are and how you're involved.
Yeah, for sure. Since we started this mission that we've been on to kind of innovate how we are looking at investing in the U.S. water sector, we were trying to bring together also partners that we thought would really be able to facilitate the conversation and also help people learn more about water and what's going on in the global water space. Because of course, very often when I was growing up, I put the TV on. Very often you'd hear stories or you'd see stories from UNICEF about how there were countries in West Africa and East Africa that were struggling to provide water for their citizens and people within their country. And we realized that that's definitely an enormous problem and it really has to be tackled. But we didn't know going into this mission how big the problem was also in the developed world, in the U.S., in Europe, but really our main focus was in the U.S. And so we said, listen, how can we bring together partners from academia, from government, from the private investment side, from the companies themselves, bring them together and create a conference during New York Climate Week where we can kind of piggyback off of the climate conversation and perhaps bring some of the attention to the water space, which is where the climate difficulties will be felt most. Mm-hmm. And at the moment, it's called Rethinking Water. Rethinking Water, this is the 6th year it's happening. It's going to happen on September 25th in New York in partnership with Columbia University. And we're also very excited because we've expanded already to two more universities. One, ASU, kind of covering the issues that are most prevalent in the Western U.S. Mm-hmm. That happened in March of this year and will probably happen again next year. And also in November, we're going to be focusing on the issues affecting both the UK and Western Europe as well. And that's going to be with Cambridge University in London. So we're trying to build out this ecosystem of stakeholders that can come together and educate people from a variety of backgrounds about just how big the water problem is and how we can tackle it and solve it together.
So bring people who do membranes and pumps and all this other devices and get a conglomerate, but then put it together as one entity and have all the top science that they can to move this forward. Is that something that you're looking, like you said, not just one little independent portion of it? You want to get a group of qualified technicians, I guess I'll use that word for a moment, or technologists who can bring all these little pieces of information to one place and then create this one entity that can do the job, I guess is the easiest way to say it. Is that sort of what you're looking at, or do I understand that right?
Yeah, so that's so perhaps I can then clarify a little bit. So we have, let's say, two branches of what I have two branches of what I do at Science. I focus, of course, on the regular day-to-day investments, which takes up a good majority of my long hours, and kind of looking at new platforms, understanding how we can innovate on the finance side as well, and just look generally at the ecosystem and understand it with more depth and with more confidence. And then we have the kind of education side. So the educational side we took on as what we thought was, let's say, our duty as being one of the, well, if not the largest dedicated U.S. Investor in the water space. So we understood that education was going to be a very key part of what we were doing at Science. And so we partner with Columbia at first, and now with ASU and Cambridge to provide this conference as a space so we can bring together people from a variety of backgrounds to educate them about the water issues facing the U.S., basically.
Mm-hmm. Well, that should be pretty interesting things. You have some good partners in that. I know you're also, Science is also a member of a group that works with the Mississippi River Cities and Towns Initiative, and I guess you're advisors or on their advisory board to that. And we've had the city on a couple of years ago, and that was the only show that brought me to tears, talking to a resident who says she doesn't get water every day. It's not available in her house, and when it comes in, it's browner and darker than mud. And the city says they live too far away from the treatment plant, so they have to go gather together with their neighbors and raise some monies because the city doesn't have the money, which is amazing to me. Jackson's the capital of Mississippi, and you would think that they would have something more substantial. And I literally, first time on the show, I mean, if you were in the studio or saw the video link at the time, I had tears dropping down. I felt so bad for these people. She said she couldn't take a bath, she couldn't wash her hair, she couldn't wash the dishes, she couldn't wash the clothes. And when the water came on, and maybe one day out of the week for a couple of hours, maybe get a sprinkle of clear water, but then it turned muddy again. And it was so sad to hear that. And I just believe everybody in the United States, because I live here, is entitled to have clean water. Absolutely. And I know there's lots of little private water agencies that can't afford to clean water or do this, but yet nobody's really doing a lot about that. I mean, I need to see the EPA get more involved and be a little bit more strict. I know they want to force the bigger water agencies to purchase these little guys and spend the money, but these big agencies spend a lot of money all year long, and it's kind of it's going on and on, like in Flint, Michigan. I mean, it's not, they haven't finalized that, and now it's all over the United States. I just don't understand why that's not a priority for anybody, because without water, we don't exist. Period.
Rob, I couldn't agree with you more. It's a deep, deep shame that this is an issue that we are even talking about in the U.S. This should not. This is a fundamental, in my opinion, this is a fundamental right of somebody to have access to clean, safe drinking water and sanitation. And the fact that there are people in the U.S. that it's not like, something has just broken from one day to the next and their water is brown, but it is a sustained problem over years. That's happening in the U.S. is a real, real shame. And part of what our CSWR platform is trying to do, CSWR was our first investment at Science, and it's a utility provider in the south central states of the U.S. who is going out and is trying to invest in these smaller utilities to improve their infrastructure because there is nobody else doing it. The municipalities don't want to do it. The small towns do not have the funds to do it themselves. So there has to be this crutch, this support from the private sector to push these people to have access to something that we should not even be, that shouldn't even be an issue in the U.S.
It shouldn't be part of any conversation. I don't know if you've heard of an organization called Global Waterworks. Have you ever heard of them? They're out of Chicago.
I'm not familiar.
And they were on our show a couple of weeks ago, but I've known the co-directors of that for 20 years, and they're actually a faith-based technology group where they partner with, just like you're saying, with other people, other technologists, and other companies, and they just provided rainwater harvesting and collection in Kenya. And we had a partner, one of the gentlemen from Kenya. He was a school teacher. He was part of the activity to help institute and implement the systems, which now they have. Each village that has about 400 people now can get water daily, clean water. And they made a system. They created a system that collects it and purifies it, and then it's there for the people. And that's amazing. But they have a huge group of thousands of members to this, of all different types of technologies. That might be something you might want to look into, and I'll send you the names of the contacts. But you're right. We shouldn't have to think about dirty water in this country, and even somewhere else in the world. I can't imagine
100%, yeah.
watching little kids, babies having nothing but dirty water to drink, and it shouldn't be. I mean, I used to laugh at everything, but if you cut your finger with a knife, okay, and not a bad cut, but it bleeds out. People got to realize we're all related. We all came from the same place, whether we like it or not. You could be my 50th cousin, and when I help manage companies in different countries, one of the things when I come in, here's this white guy coming in and this and that, but I always tell the story. Hey, we're related to each other. I don't want to hurt my family. I don't want to kill anybody. I don't want to do anything. But I think it's important that people realize that we need to all work together for a common goal, and instead of fighting. And there's too. I won't get into the politics. I don't like that. But it just amazes me when it comes to helping people and helping society. That's part of our purpose to be here, and do that.
100%. 100%, and fundamentally to give drink to the thirsty is one of the corporal works of mercy within Christianity, and so I think that it's definitely something that it's such a fundamental need for everybody, and so I'll leave it at that.
No, I agree with you. Where do you see the future of water?
That's a difficult question.
Yes.
Well, personally, I see the future of water being a bridge where we can kind of understand how the public and private sector can work together to improve and to bring to a respectable standard the water infrastructure across both the developed and the developing world. I think, first of all, that's a very, very core area. And I also think that there's going to be, of course, an aspect of innovation in this. I think that definitely the people, as you're saying, at Flotion, at Oceanwell, as you were just saying with the previous caller, how they're kind of innovating using these deep sea technologies to massively reduce the energy burden when it comes to desalination. If it is able to be executed, it would be a phenomenal, and it would be an amazing good for everybody. But I think that where I see water having the biggest progress is in a better conversation and a better union between making it easier and more attractive for private capital to come in and help support and develop the infrastructure that is so core to fundamental nature.
Yeah, I agree 1,000%. One of the big things of we're talking about is contamination in the water, the PFAS. I can go on and on and on. You know as much as I do or more.
Yeah.
I mean, there's got to be ways to solve that issue and to have more. I'm not a regulation kind of person, but I think you need to have regulation in order to have order and stability. and I don't know how that's going to pay out in the future. You know, the world's going crazy all the time, but everybody should stop for a minute and think, how do we solve some of these problems? What can we do? And I think the things that you're investing in and what you're looking for is a good purpose. And I'm sure you're successful at that. And how do people get a hold of you if they have some ideas or something they want to run by your company?
Well, I mean, I think that the best way is through our website, through reach out to one of us directly, or through LinkedIn or whatever it is, through our emails, but also to attend and take part in Rethinking Water. If there's a event on the West Coast that's closer to you,
yes.
or if there's one in New York that's closer to you, to take part and to meet other stakeholders who are in equal position of willingness to a calling almost to make an impact in the water space. We should come and speak to each other and stay connected and really help people.
One of the amazing people I know in the industry, and I know you know him too, he's on the advisory board, is Seth Siegel, a good friend. He's been on our show for at least a minimum of 3 years, 3 times. And he's an awesome guy to listen to, and he tells the story of what Israel had done, and they have some new technology they're developing with emitters for drip and things like that. Yeah. He's the kind of guy that you want to have on your side. He's very familiar. I mean, his background. He's a legal guy. He's an investor. I mean, I was surprised as I got to know him for the last probably about 8 years. You know, that he used to finance the Man from Mancha on Broadway. You know, but he also ran and built some companies that he sold for quite a bit of money. I mean, he understands business, legal. He knows all of that, and he's very knowledgeable up on water. He's written at least three books that I have that he's written. And but it's good to see that you're partnering with the right people. Well, we're getting close to our news hour. And I do want to thank you very, very much. When I see you in person, I'll make your sleep up. I buy you dinner or lunch or something because I sincerely appreciate you doing. Our listeners, I hope they got a lot out of this because it's very important what you guys do and brings more knowledge to the industry. So we appreciate that.
Thanks for having me, Rob. I appreciate it.
Okay, if you can stay on the line until we sign off just for a few more minutes, and just after we clip with NBC, and that'll be great. So thanks for listening in. I hope you enjoyed the show. Lots of things to talk about. If you have questions and things, please send them in. I know they sent some questions on our chat board. I hadn't a chance to look at them because I was talking too much. But we'll get back to them and have them on the show again. So remember, if you like green, you got to have blue. So good night, everybody, and we'll talk to you next week.
NBC News on KCAA Loma Linda.